Alright, ladies and gents, welcome to today's video. My name is Taylor Benchard. We have an amazing question that was asked by someone named Averos. It sounds like the name might be Latin. I could be totally wrong. But the question was, what do you do with agency income, when you're making between $5,000 to $30,000 per month? How much do you put aside? How much do you pay yourself? How do you save or invest that money at that level? I remember being at that level thinking I would have no idea what I would do if someone gave me $1 million, let's say, to go and invest into my agency. However, today I feel much better about answering that question and knowing what I would do with the money. So we're going to get into that in the whiteboard here. And the primary benefit of understanding what to do with it is so that you can grow your agency faster. I think it's a fantastic question, and I also really struggled with this. So let's get straight into it. Before we do, you can see I'm likely not in the house. I'm in a place called Salinas in a location, part of Panama called Playa Vinao. It is a beach. Came out here for actually a couple weeks, and I'm leaving home tomorrow. So this is the only video that you'll probably get to see not in the house. All right, so here's the whiteboard here, and what do you do with your agency income? The first thing that you got to ask yourself is, what are you optimizing for? This is a really great question. I don't care. Like this question applies to everything and everyone in life. What are you optimizing for? So let's say that you're doing $10,000 per month. Are you optimizing to build a big agency with 1,000+ people? Are you optimizing to buy a Lamborghini? Are you optimizing to be with your family and only work 10 to 20 hours per week? I can't answer this question unless you answer this first question, Averos, and to all those of you who want to know the answer to this question. So let's assume that you're optimizing for a big agency with, let's just say, 1,000+ people, because that's more or less what we're trying to do with Better AMS. We're trying to scale this thing to the absolute moon. And let's assume that that's the case. Let's assume I'm optimizing or you're optimizing to build a big agency. Well, here's what I can tell you. There's three very important things. Number one is Runway. So I didn't even know what this word meant. I had no idea how important it was in the first 2 years of running my agency, and I wish I did. Runway is basically how much money you have in the bank to burn through, assuming all revenue went to zero and expenses stayed the same. So let's say my expenses are $100,000 per month, and I only have $1 million in the bank liquid cash. If revenue goes to zero, I can live about 10 months before I go out of business or bankrupt. That's your runway. Now, this is what I consider extreme runway, because there's very few cases in your life where revenue is going to go to complete zero. But COVID-19 is a great example of that. A worldwide pandemic really did affect the restaurant industry in a way for a certain period of time, and other industries like nightclubs where revenue truly went to zero. And if these businesses didn't own the land, they didn't own the property, they were still likely paying rent. They probably had to negotiate. They still had salaries, whatever. A lot of businesses went out of business, okay? And it's likely because they didn't have a very strong runway. So you want to basically, number one, be stacking up at least 12 to 18 months of runway as soon as possible. You're likely not going to have 12 to 18 months of runway for maybe a year or two, depending on how quickly you scale your agency and how quickly you hire people. But, when it's just you, you're not really thinking about this because it's just you. But if you're thinking long term, you're thinking, okay, 5-10 years out, I want to have 1,000+ people. Well, the margins of your agency at scale, we've found out, are typically going to be between 25 to 35%. If you're really trying to scale and proactively hire people, and you're also trying to, do your best to not just 100% focus on profits, but also focus on experience and other things. So runway is very important. I recommend you try to save as much as possible so that you can build up to 12 to 18 months of runway, assuming you want to build a big agency. After you have 12 to 18 months of runway, I don't really know what happens. We're working our way up to get to about 18 months of runway. After that, maybe we'll be willing to push our margins down lower, but at a minimum, we want to have 30 to 25% margins. Ideally, 35 is our target each quarter, so that each year we can build up, I think it's like 4 months of runway each year, assuming we hit 33% profit margins for the year. So pay yourself a modest salary is number two. I mean, ideally you can pay yourself as little as possible in the beginning. I was living at home in my parents' house, so I didn't have any expenses, and I could have paid myself next to zero. But being a 19-year-old kid and making a decent amount of money, significantly more than the average 19-year-old, I probably burned through a lot of cash. Not in like a stupid way on stupid things, but just courses, man. Like so many courses. Over $100,000 spent on courses, and half of it I don't regret it. I think half of it was very well spent, but the other half and some other purchases and other things that were paid for is just like it was a waste, and I wish I would have paid myself less and would have retained much more of the profits. But make sure to invest in yourself. Just don't get caught by shiny object syndrome, which is what I got hit by. I was buying courses on how to start like drop shipping, e-commerce, and stuff like that, which was not at all related to the agency. So it was more or less all just distractions. So pay yourself a modest salary. How much is that? I mean, it depends on how much you're making. Again, let's assume that you're doing $30,000 per month, and $15,000 of that is profit, or let's say $20,000 of that is profit after all expenses except for your salary. Look, pay yourself as much as you feel comfortable with paying yourself. Try to be as modest as possible, in my opinion. I think that's more or less how it should always be. I don't think you should ever pay yourself an abnormally astronomical high salary. It's going to kill your agency, and why do you want that? You don't really need more than like $8,000 to $9,000 per month at the most. I'm thinking of like myself personally. Making more than $100,000 per year is great, but you're going to be pretty, like, your happiness isn't really going to increase that much if you go from like 100 to 150. There's a good I think it was Ty Lopez who always says this. I don't know who, Daniel Kahneman or Daniel Lieberman. He said that after about $77,000 per year, your happiness really doesn't go up that much. So keep that in mind. After you're paying yourself more than $77,000, it's like happiness isn't going to go up too much. So pay yourself a modest salary. And then number 3 is talent. This is where I would invest a lot of the profits. So I would invest heavily into talent. And I know this is very vague, but ultimately, if you want to build a big agency, this is what's going to make or break you, because talent is more or less the most important part of the agency. I can't think of anything else that is more important. The number one element of an agency is people, right? Like, that is the only way you can scale, is with people. Yes, there's systems, and systems are important, but ultimately agencies are very people intensive, and believe it or not, people are very magical and beautiful, and they can do a lot of crazy things that you would never be able to do yourself, and they can help you scale the agency much faster. So talent, investing in talent and training talent and making sure that they can become the best version of themselves within the agency is probably one of the most important things and best things that you can put your money into, assuming you want to build a big agency. So these are the 3 most important things I can say relevant to, again, this question of what to do with your agency income, assuming you're optimizing for building a big agency. If you're optimizing for traveling with your family and working just 10 to 20 hours per week, I mean, the answer of this video would be very different. I've never optimized for that, so I won't even try to answer what to do with that question. I've never really thought about it. But you need to ask yourself, what are you optimizing for? And then go from there. If you're optimizing for this, then you're going to need good runway, you're going to need to pay yourself a modest salary, and you're going to need amazing talent. So that's where I would invest a lot of the energy. I've never invested into things like stocks or anything else like that of that nature, real estate, stocks, any of that stuff. Personally, I just want to be all in on the agency. I'm sure there will be a day where there's such an abundance of cash that it should be put into something other than just sitting in a bank account. But I'm a big believer in a huge runway, and cash is king at the end of the day when a pandemic hits. So, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Again, I really appreciate all of the comments on this video. Seriously, so many great video ideas, and I know what to do now if I ever run out of ideas. You guys are amazing. I really appreciate it. And also, as you know, we're in the process of building Agency Enlightened. I'm going to try to post more about what is being built and what's getting finished. I more or less finished the slides recently for, I think it was the personal mindset. So Agency Enlightened is coming along. A lot of you guys have asked questions about when this thing's getting launched. I don't have a specific launch date. The target is the end of January, and that's all I can say. So let me know your thoughts on this video, guys. Much love, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.